The Galactic Council had always viewed humanity as weak, dismissing Earth as an insignificant backwater world. But their betrayal, their attempt to erase humanity's existence, would lead to something much more terrifying. Earth's vengeance fleet was not a simple retaliation, it was a reckoning. The Galactic Council was seated in silence, a heavy air in the chamber, as they finalized their plans to strike Earth. The leaders of the galaxy's most powerful species sat around the circular table, each one lost in their own thoughts. The Zarthians, towering and adorned in metallic armor, were the first to speak, their voice thick with arrogance. "They've made their position clear," the Zarthian leader said, his voice dripping with superiority. "The humans will not bow to us. Their weakness is their pride." A Gorthian, slim and cold-eyed, nodded in agreement. "We've given them a chance. Now it's time to remove the threat before it becomes too great." "Agreed," the Vaxian added, his insectoid features twisting into a sharp grin. "Earth's defenses are primitive, their ships laughable. We strike now, and we erase their existence from the galaxy." The room buzzed with consensus, but there was one voice that remained silent. The Zycorian, known for its cold and calculating nature, had been observing the others quietly. Its sharp eyes flicked between the members, its expression unreadable. Finally, it spoke. "I think you underestimate them," the Zycorian said softly. "This is no mere nuisance. Earth may be primitive, but their resolve is something we've yet to fully understand." The council leader scoffed. "Their resolve? They are nothing more than insects to be crushed." The Zycorian's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but what if they're not? What if we've missed something, a force we cannot predict?" The council laughed, dismissing the Zycorian's warning with mockery. "Primitive logic," one of the Zarthians sneered. "They are a dying race, and we will end their existence before it ever has a chance to grow." The laughter in the chamber echoed, but it was hollow, the sound of overconfidence. They were already too far gone, too drunk on their own power to hear the warning. Meanwhile, on Earth, the diplomat who had delivered the original message to the Council sat in a dimly lit room, watching the screens as military officials around him worked with frantic energy. The message had been sent, the fleet was in place, and Earth's vengeance was about to be unleashed. He stood there, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the wall of monitors. He wasn't surprised by the Council's decision. The Zarthians and their allies had always viewed humanity as nothing more than a nuisance. But what they failed to realize was that humanity had something far more powerful than technology on its side. It had determination. "Sir, the fleet is ready for launch," a young officer reported, his voice trembling. "We've locked onto the Council's coordinates. They're expecting an attack. Let them expect," the diplomat interrupted, his voice quiet but fierce. "They thought it was mercy. It wasn't." He turned away from the monitors, his face betraying no emotion. His people had been betrayed, humiliated, and dismissed. The time for mercy had passed. "They've underestimated us," he muttered to himself, "and now they will learn what happens when you push humanity too far." Back in the council chamber, the Zycorian's warning had fallen on deaf ears. The Zarthian leader, still confident in his assessment of humanity, leaned forward and spoke with finality. "Launch the fleet! Annihilate Earth! No more delays!" But as the words left his lips, a sudden tremor shook the chamber. The council members froze, confusion quickly turning to panic. The screens around the room flickered, showing a massive human fleet, crude, unpolished, and yet undeniably powerful, emerging from the depths of space. The diplomat's voice echoed in the council chamber, a ghostly presence that reached them even through the cold vacuum of space. "Did you think we'd just stand by while you betrayed us?" The diplomat's voice crackled through the static. "Did you think you could erase us, humiliate us, and face no consequences? You were wrong." The Zarthian leader's eyes widened in shock. "How?" Before he could finish, the first salvo of human fire tore through the Council's flagship. The massive blast erupted like a violent storm, ripping the ship's hull apart. The humans had waited, bided their time, but now they were fighting back. This wasn't just about survival, it was about vengeance. The Council members were paralyzed as their ships began to explode, the chaos erupting around them as Earth's vengeance fleet descended like a hammer upon them. In that moment, the Zarthian leader realized the full gravity of their mistake. They had thought it was mercy, but it wasn't. It was a reckoning, and it was only just beginning. The Galactic Council had believed their superior technology and vast fleets would crush Earth without resistance. But as humanity's vengeance fleet revealed its true power, the Council realized that their underestimation of Earth was their greatest mistake. Humanity was not only prepared for war, it was determined to end the Council's reign. The battle had just begun, and the first strike was already changing the tide. The sound of the Council's laughter echoed through the chamber, but it was a hollow, nervous kind of laughter. As the Zarthian leader's last words about Earth's insignificance reverberated through the chamber, something happened. A subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the air. For the first time, doubt crept into the Council members' minds. The fleet was ready to launch, their attack set, their victory assured. But in the back of their minds, the Zycorians' warning lingered, scratching at their thoughts. Had they underestimated the humans? Across the galaxy, Earth's fleet had emerged from the hidden depths of its defenses, a vast array of warships that seemed crude, disorganized, primitive even, compared to the smooth lines of the Council's advanced ships. Yet it was the unpredictability of these ships, the raw power they wielded, that would become the Council's undoing. The diplomat, who had once stood before the Council calm and resolute, now stood within the command center on Earth, watching. As the screens updated in real time, his eyes narrowed as a flicker of static broke across the monitors. Humanity's first strike was underway. "We're locking onto their flagship," an officer called out, his voice tense. "Coordinates locked. Ready to fire on your command, sir." The diplomat's lips curved into a faint smile. His mission wasn't about simple retaliation. This was about something far bigger, something that would change the galaxy forever. "Do it," he said softly, his voice carrying weight. The flagship of the Council was a massive, gleaming symbol of power. It had been built to withstand everything, every weapon, every countermeasure, every possible strategy. But as it sailed through the vastness of space, headed toward Earth with unrelenting force, it was unaware of the silent menace approaching. The first sign of humanity's fleet came as a ripple, a faint disturbance in the fabric of space itself. The first human warship appeared, and then another and another. As they emerged from the dark void of space, their presence alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of those who watched. The ships, ancient and crude, were powered by energy, sources older than anything the Council had ever seen. Their outer hulls were thick, reinforced by layers of metal that appeared untouched by time. There were no sleek curves or advanced cloaking technologies, just raw, brutal ships built for one purpose: destruction. In a fraction of a second, the Zarthian fleet's defensive systems flared to life, detecting the ship's approach. But it was already too late. The human ships didn't need the sophisticated tracking systems or advanced weaponry of the Council. What they had instead was a relentless desire for vengeance, and that was more than enough. The first blast hit the Zarthian flagship's outer shields. A shockwave erupted through the space around it, shaking the massive vessel like a leaf. In the wind, the shields held for a moment. The second blast hit harder, and the shields flickered. The third shot cracked through, breaking the shield barrier with an explosive burst. "Shields are failing!" A panicked voice echoed through the command center aboard the Zarthian flagship. "Get us out of here! All weapons, fire now!" But the weapons that the Council relied on, the beams and energy blasts that were designed to obliterate entire worlds, were useless. As the human ships closed in, they unleashed devastating waves of fire, massive kinetic blasts, shockwave pulses, and brutal energy discharges. The Zarthian flagship began to fracture as blasts tore through its hull, rippling through the metal in an unrelenting sequence of destruction. On Earth, the diplomat watched as the Zarthian fleet's ship began to crumble. It was the first victory, the first strike against an empire that had thought itself invincible. But the diplomat wasn't celebrating. This wasn't about winning. It was about sending a message. The Council had made a critical error. They had assumed that Earth would kneel before them, that humanity would cower in fear. They thought Earth's silence meant weakness. They thought it was mercy, the diplomat murmured to himself. But it wasn't. In the council chamber, panic was beginning to set in. The once confident leaders of the galaxy were scrambling, their voices rising in frantic calls. The screens around them flickered with the image of their fleet being torn apart. Their once mighty ships, designed to crush entire civilizations with ease, were now reduced to floating debris in a matter of minutes. "How are they doing this?" the Gorthian hissed, his voice dripping with disbelief. "Their ships, are they powered by something we don't understand?" "Impossible!" the Vaxian shouted. "Their weapons are primitive. How can they be so powerful?" The Zarthian leader stood frozen, watching the destruction unfold on the screens. "No," he whispered, disbelief creeping into his voice. "This is not possible. They're not supposed to be able to do this." As the chaos unfolded, another blast hit, and this time the Zarthian flagship exploded in a violent burst of light, its core collapsing in on itself. The massive structure, once the symbol of the Council's superiority, was now a burning wreck, spinning slowly in the void of space. The fleet that had once been sent to annihilate Earth was now in full retreat, its forces shattered and broken. The human fleet wasn't finished yet, however. The first battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Back on Earth, the diplomat stood tall, his eyes cold and resolute. "Tell our fleet to prepare for Phase 2. We've only just begun." The Council's arrogance had led to their downfall. In their blind belief in their own superiority, they had ignored the quiet threat that Earth posed, assuming it was beneath them. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, its capacity for vengeance, and now they were paying the price. The diplomat watched as Earth's fleet continued its attack, the ships moving with a deadly precision, an unstoppable force that would not be denied. It wasn't just about destroying the Council's fleet, it was about showing the galaxy that humanity would no longer be silenced, no longer be ignored. "They thought it was mercy," the diplomat repeated softly. "But it wasn't. It was vengeance." And as the first wave of the human fleet began its final approach to the next phase of the battle, the diplomat knew one thing for certain. The Council would never forget this day. The Galactic Council, having suffered a devastating loss at the hands of Earth's vengeance fleet, scrambles to recover, but Earth's retaliation is just beginning. Humanity's silence has proven to be a weapon of its own, and as Earth's fleet presses on, the Council realizes they've been caught in a trap they can't escape. The final stages of their downfall are now in motion. The remnants of the Zarthian flagship drifted in space, its once pristine hull now a shattered mass of burning debris. The other ships of the Council's fleet had quickly fallen into disarray, their coordinated attack crumbling as humanity's unexpected assault continued. The Council had underestimated Earth's resolve, and now the consequences were becoming clear. The chaos in the command center of the Council grew louder. The once confident leaders of the galaxy were no longer the powerful figures they had been just hours before. Fear had replaced arrogance, and confusion had overtaken strategy. The war they had expected to win with ease had turned into a nightmare. The message from Earth was clear. Humanity would no longer be silenced. On Earth, the diplomats stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays with cold detachment. The first wave had been successful, but that was only the beginning. The true strength of Earth's fleet had yet to be revealed. "Phase 2 is ready," a technician reported, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on the screens. "We're initiating the second strike now." The diplomat gave a subtle nod. Earth's fleet was not just a collection of ships. It was a well-coordinated force. Every ship designed for a specific purpose, every movement calculated for maximum impact. They had prepared for this moment for years. The Council thought they were dealing with a primitive species, one that could be easily erased. But Earth's forces were far more advanced than they realized. Back in the Council chamber, the leaders scrambled to regain control of their fleets. The once mighty Zarthian forces were retreating, but it wasn't enough. The humans had broken through their defenses, and now the entire Council was at risk of losing everything. "We cannot let them win," the Gorthian leader hissed, his eyes flashing with rage. "They've destroyed our fleet. We have to retaliate with everything we have, but we don't know what we're dealing with." The Vaxian argued, panic creeping into his voice. "These humans, how are they so powerful? Their ships, their weapons, it's as if they've been hiding their true capabilities all along." The Council leader, who had once spoken with unshakable confidence, now stood frozen in place, his gaze fixed on the screens showing Earth's fleet advancing. "We have made a grave mistake," he muttered under his breath. "A grave mistake." He knew the truth now. They had assumed Earth was weak, that their silence meant fear or submission. But they had been wrong. The humans had been waiting for the right moment to strike back, and the Council had given them that moment on a silver platter. The diplomat's voice echoed through the communication channels as Earth's fleet pressed on. "We've sent a message, and now we send the final blow." The second wave of humanity's fleet emerged from the darkness of space, moving with deadly precision. Unlike the first wave, which had been a direct assault on the Council's fleet, this new force was made up of ships designed for tactical superiority. Smaller, faster, more agile, these ships struck from unexpected angles, using guerrilla tactics to tear apart the remaining Council forces. The Zarthian leader watched helplessly as the ships around him were picked apart one by one. The once unified fleet was now in tatters, its advanced weaponry useless against the raw power and cunning of humanity's forces. As his own flagship burned and disintegrated before him, he realized there was nothing left to do but retreat. Earth's vengeance was unstoppable. Back on Earth, the diplomats stood in front of the holographic map, watching as the final ships of the Council's fleet were destroyed. It was a brutal, poetic revenge, but it was also a warning. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to send a message to the galaxy, a message that would echo through the cosmos for generations. "We've done it," the officer beside him said, his voice filled with awe. The diplomat's eyes narrowed, but there was no smile on his face. "No, not yet. The Council may be defeated, but the galaxy needs to understand what happens when they underestimate humanity." The final strike was still coming. Earth's vengeance had not been fully realized. And as the last remnants of the Council's fleet burned in space, the diplomat knew that this was only the beginning. The Council had fallen, but humanity's reckoning was far from over. The diplomat turned away from the screens, his mind focused on the next steps. The Council's defeat was a victory, but Earth had one last message to send. The galaxy would know that Earth was no longer a forgotten backwater world. The galaxy would know that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and they would never forget the price of betrayal. As the screens flashed one final time, showing the final destruction of the Council's forces, the diplomat's voice was calm, almost detached. The galaxy will never forget this day. The final remnants of the Council's once mighty fleet hung in space, battered and broken, with the husks of their advanced ships drifting aimlessly. The vast ships that had been built to instill fear across the galaxy were now nothing more than shattered remains, evidence of the brutal awakening of humanity's power. But even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, the leaders of the Galactic Council refused to accept their defeat. The Zarthian leader, standing before a view screen showing the remains of their flagship, clenched his fists in fury. This cannot be the end. The humans are mere insects. We cannot, will not, allow them to get away with this. We've lost, the Vaxian whispered, his voice shaking. They have destroyed everything. The fleets, our pride. What do we do now? We fight back, the Zarthian leader growled, his face set in grim determination. We rally what we have left. We prepare for the final strike. The humans think they've won, but they haven't. Not yet. The Gorthian nodded, his cold, calculating mind already at work. There is one option left, a last resort. It's risky, but if we launch it, we could still turn the tide. We'll put everything into this final push and wipe out Earth's fleet. The Vaxian's eyes widened. You're talking about activating the ancient weapons, the ones we've kept hidden for centuries. The Gorthian's gaze hardened. Yes, if we deploy them now, we can erase humanity from existence, but it must be done with absolute precision. This is our only chance. The council leader hesitated. The thought of using the ancient weapons was a desperate measure, a fallback to the darkest strategies the council had ever devised. It was a power that had been hidden away for fear of its catastrophic potential. But with their fleets in tatters, with Earth's ships closing in, they had no choice. The Council's survival depended on it. Prepare the weapon systems, the Zarthian leader ordered, his voice final. All ships, engage the power reserves. We're going to show Earth that we are not a species to be forgotten. As the remnants of the Council's fleet rallied around their final bastion, Earth's vengeance fleet moved with unmatched precision. The human ships were relentless, moving in waves, each attack more devastating than the last. There was no retreat, no hesitation in their movements, only forward momentum driven by the fury of betrayal. The diplomat stood in the command center, his gaze fixed on the tactical displays. The screens in front of him showed the dwindling number of Council ships, their defenses crumbling as Earth's warships advanced. The first phase had been a success, the second even more so. But there was one final step left, the complete annihilation of the Council's power. Sir, we've intercepted their communication, an officer reported. They're activating something. It's a weapon of unimaginable power. It could be a last-ditch effort to wipe us out. The diplomat's eyes narrowed. I know what they're doing, but it's too late for them. They have no idea what they're up against. The plan was simple, but it required precision. Humanity's fleet was built not only for combat, but for tactical superiority. Each ship was equipped with advanced technology, systems designed to disable, disarm, and cripple any threat, no matter how powerful. The diplomat had anticipated that the Council would pull something like this. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and evolve, and now it would be their undoing. We need to move quickly, the diplomat said, his voice low but commanding. Deploy the countermeasures, lock onto their weapon systems, and disable them before they can launch their final strike. Back in the heart of the Council fleet, the countdown had begun. The ancient weapons, capable of obliterating entire planets, charged up, their energy fields crackling with dark power. The Zarthian leader, watching from his command center, felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. This was the final move. This would be the moment of their vengeance. Now, he shouted, fire the weapon, destroy them all. The power surged through the weapon systems, and in that moment the Council believed they had won. But as the energy gathered, something went wrong. The human fleet had already deployed their countermeasures. Sophisticated tech that locked onto the weapons' core systems, scrambling their frequencies, overwhelming their targeting systems. A massive pulse of energy shot through the space between Earth's fleet and the Council's remaining ships. The ancient weapon, once primed to annihilate Earth, exploded in a violent burst of energy, its force turning against the Council's own ships. It was too much, too powerful. The blast tore through the remaining Zarthian and Vaxian vessels, causing massive explosions that lit up the void like a fiery constellation. The Council leader screamed in fury as his ships were torn apart. The final weapon they had hoped would save them had become their undoing, just as the diplomat had predicted. No! This cannot be! The last of the Council ships were consumed by the chaos of their own weapons' failure. The few remaining, vessels, crippled and damaged, had no chance of survival. Earth's fleet moved forward, unyielding. Back on Earth, the diplomat watched the final battle unfold. The Council's forces were now completely defeated. The enemy ships, once symbols of dominance, were reduced to burning wrecks in space. It was over, but there was no celebration. There would be no gloating, no triumph. Humanity had sent its message, but the cost of this victory was not one to be taken lightly. The diplomat turned away from the screens, his face a mask of resolve. "Prepare for the final broadcast," he ordered. "Let the galaxy know what happens when you betray humanity. Let them see what we've done." As Earth's ships circled the remains of the Council's fleet, the diplomat's voice echoed across the stars, carrying with it the weight of a promise. "Let this be the last time anyone underestimates us. The galaxy will remember today, and the Council will never rise again." And with that, Earth's vengeance was complete.